Comics are stupid.
No Harry Potter movie is good.
And you're like, give me the Snyder Cut. Oh, sorry, just walk in front of you here. Gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry, gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
You know what I was thinking about just recently? So I was having a conversation with a few guys who are pretty cool. Obviously, you should check them out because they do stuff too. Tickets for Two, Earth 894, and Nerd Dose. Just their links are somewhere. But they were, they're really making me think, and I don't like thinking that much. So it was a very big change for me. I say in trying to be funny. It's not working. Okay, cool. So yeah, they were making me think. Now, what were they making me think about, you may be asking? Because it's like, what could you possibly be thinking about? Well, it was the comments made by Quentin Tarantino. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the comment kind of in the center of the picture of the thing on the screen. But if you're not, I'm going to read it to you. Part of the Marvelization of Hollywood is you have all these actors who have become famous playing these characters, but they're not movie stars, right? Captain America is the star, or Thor is the star. I mean, I'm not the first person to say that. I think that's being said a zillion times. But it's like, it's these franchise characters that become a star. And what the argument kind of was that we were having, or the discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, we were having was, what is a movie star, right? Because that was a question I started to ponder. Like, you talk about, okay, well, they aren't movie stars. Because, like, my initial reaction was, yeah, they're not movie stars. I mean, Iron Man is a movie. Like, is that, like, what is the term of a movie star? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, we use this term all the time. Movie star this, movie star that. But, like, can anyone actually point to a definition? So what I tried to do was, like, okay, who is a movie star? Like, what is this definition that the general public is supposed to use? Now, the Google definition for a movie star is basically just someone who stars in movies, and that's not very helpful because then, by that means anyone who had a leading role in a movie ever is a movie star. So, in that case, I guess technically Quentin Tarantino's argument is completely null and void just by the dictionary definition of a movie star, right? So I was like, okay, well, where did movie star come from? So it's been around basically as long as movies have been around, and it's been around even before that because these movie stars essentially, I believe the word started in Great Britain, and the idea was the movie star term was like this person who's, because they're so much better than us, right? They're like these stars, these mystical things. Now that's a little bit different. Now we just use the term as like a normal part of everyday life. But like, we never actually defined it. Like, because I would argue a lot of people who act in movies now are not these mystical creatures, or these beings who are so much better than us. Arguably, you could argue a lot of them are not better than us at all in any way, right? So then what is a movie star? No one's ever actually defined this. So I found a cool article, and all the links to all these articles are going to be in the description, which is way back in 2003. Before I was even alive, because it was like earlier in the year, and it was about kind of talking about this idea of fast food and fine meal films, and this is a Tobey Maguire talking. Movies are different these days. These big franchise movies with sequels that were maybe once considered fast food. You've got Ang Lee, the Wachowskis, Sam Raimi. All these great filmmakers are making them, so it's different. Spider-Man is a story I really believe in. Obviously, it's a big business, and that had its place in my decision. But it's too hard to wake up morning after morning and go to work unless you truly believe in what you're doing. And this seems kind of irrelevant. You may be saying, well, it's irrelevant. What does that have to do with anything? But I think it does, because it shows how early this conversation has kind of become about. Because you can argue, well, you've seen this evolution in this idea of what you consider film. Well, you have people like Scorsese still saying film is, these Marvel movies or whatever, but they've been saying that since 2003 when, Spider-Man was coming out, well before Iron Man. So, this isn't a new concept where people are trying to understand what is a movie star. Is a character a movie star? Like, is Tobey Maguire a movie star? Because Spider-Man's played by 3 different people. I mean, live action, 3 different people, I think, unless I'm forgetting somebody. And so then there's that side of it, which is is the character the first one, or is the actor the first one? Like, does the character make the actor popular, or the actor make the character popular? So then I was like, okay, how do we measure this? Well, let's look at box office, because I like numbers, right? Numbers really help, are a really good empirical kind of way to analyze what a movie star is. So let's start with that, because that was my initial argument. So I'm gonna read you something, okay? So these are the top 10 movies, the highest grossing people at the domestic box office, okay? Like, cumulatively. Samuel L. Jackson is number 1. Robert Downey Jr. is number 2. Scarlett Johansson is number 3. Tom Hanks is number 4. Tom Cruise is number 5. Chris Pratt is number 6. Chris Hemsworth is number 7. Bradley Cooper is number 8. Chris Evans is number 9. And number 10 is Harrison Ford. So now let's look at some of these guys. So what does Sam Jackson, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, Bradley Cooper, Chris Evans all have in common? You got, what do they all have in common? They have Marvel in common, right? Now, what do Sam Jackson and Harrison Ford have in common? They have Star Wars. Now, we're going to take Sam Jackson out of this conversation for a second, because Sam Jackson, I think, is being defined by more than Nick Fury in the sense, even to the point where I think if you showed a picture of Sam Jackson to someone, you may not even get Nick Fury in the top 10 of who they say. Okay, maybe I'm wrong about that, but like, you get the idea. So let's look at some of the other ones who are not related to Marvel. Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise is the list. And again, we're ignoring Sam Jackson because he is an enigma where he's done both Marvel, Star Wars, and also a ton of other popular things, before that. So, Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise. Neither of them have had a franchise, right? They're movie stars. But they've also done things where they can have multiple high-grossing movies, right? Hence why they're 4 and 5 on this list. Now let's look at Robert Downey Jr., right? Which was kind of the initial, I guess, factor for me in my argument was, look, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, right? Like, that's something we say often. We say, oh, he's Iron Man. He's like the living embodiment of Iron Man. Like, he is the character. But, like, what does that mean? Does that mean that, like, then let's look at Doolittle, right? Could anyone buy him in Doolittle? I mean, the critics say no. The critics say, oh, what was that, right? And I think the box office says people really didn't see him in that. Now, like, if your movie, like, Iron Man in 2008 was his biggest movie, like, up until that point, box office wise, and then he had his run of Marvel movies, and then his first movie after that was Doolittle, which went back down to, like, nothingness. So the question is, is Robert Downey Jr. the real draw in this case? Because what I'm gonna kind of base the idea of a movie star on, I guess, in my mind, is this: a movie star is someone who can draw people to watch them, right? Like when you think of movie stars, right? If you want to go by the dictionary definition, there's someone who leads in a movie, okay? Now, what's the best way to it's really hard to find an empirical measurement of this. And I tried to find anybody with some, like, empirical measurement, but the only thing I could find is box office, right? Like, there's an article I found, again, it'll be linked somewhere in the description, talking about Tom Cruise being the last movie star. And this is a little excerpt from the article. Maverick is his, talking about Tom Cruise, 42nd film as a lead. Adjusted to 2019 ticket prices, they grossed over $10 billion domestic, with 10 of his films reaching $200 million or more. In that kind of raw accounting, Harrison Ford is a bigger star thanks to Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchises, along with many other standalone hits. Marvel will similarly skew the box office numbers for stars like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and Scarlett Johansson. Tom Cruise, while his Mission Impossible franchise created over $1.6 billion in domestic box office to date, the overwhelming majority of his success comes from standalone films. Nor is he buoyed by awards, although regarded as a nuanced performer who has excelled in romantic, action, comedic, and dramatic roles. He has 3 nominations and no award wins, right? So look at that then and say, okay, so it's box office. It has to be box office, right? Because the argument here is the money, right? We looked at the money chart. We talked about the money made, and it's like, okay, so is he If that is the case, right, then Robert Downey Jr. cannot be a movie star because he cannot draw people into wanting to watch him. Was the draw to Iron Man, or the Robert Downey Jr. being Iron Man, or is the draw to Iron Man the character Iron Man, right? Like, I think the box office of his other movies shows you that the draw is not there. And now, granted, I think probably the better empirical kind of method to show this would probably be like a survey of some form of a survey analysis of trying to understand what people kind of think of him. But at the same time, you have to look at this in I guess the way it was, in my mind at least. You have to look at this in the best method we have without doing a whole proper experiment, and actually say, hey, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, but and again, this isn't a bad thing. I should need to emphasize this because someone's gonna get mad at me for this. This isn't a bad thing, and obviously you can disagree, I guess, but no one can provide, and I've looked and I've asked people and I've said, can anyone here provide a alternative to the idea that box office shows you how popular someone is? Because in my mind, if a movie star is the definition of someone who stars in movies, if they're someone who have been looked at and admired since the beginning, the term was kind of created as this like mystical kind of admired person, right? Then the idea is, if you watch the movie with that person, you are watching a movie star, right? Is that not what you're watching? Like, if a movie star, if you don't go and watch a movie star, are they really a movie star, right? Like, if you're watching Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, but you're not watching him as anything else, and I mean, again, not like no one's watching him at all, but like, less people watch him as Doolittle than they did as Iron Man, does that make him a non-movie star, right? But if you have someone like, okay, let's say a Tom Cruise can do a variety of different things. He can do Minority Report. He can do all these other things. He can do Mission Impossible. He can do Top Gun. He can do A Few Good Men. And if you go and you watch him consistently because you're like, oh, I like him. Maybe they don't reach the same heights. Every single movie does reach the same heights, and that has a lot of other factors involved. But you have to assume, if you can have a consistent kind of method for your, like, if you go and you're like, hey, it's a Tom Cruise movie, I'm going to watch it, then does that not make him an instant movie star? That's what a movie star is it not? Like, you're going to go watch them. But then if you're going to watch for Iron Man, I'm going to go watch Iron Man 2, not for Robert Downey Jr., which, again, great guy, I'm sure. And people love watching him. No one's saying they don't. But they're going because of Iron Man, right? Robert Downey. And again, it's not to say that he can't have another good movie or he can't do another good role, but the Iron Man made him a star, right? And so therefore, more than anything, Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr., which means Iron Man is a star. Now, again, there are better theoretical ways to test this, for sure, right? The issue is obviously we practically cannot do it, and so it's hard to understand. Well, who is a movie star? And again, Sam Jackson, I believe, is a movie star, mainly because he not only has the consistency of franchises, but also has the tons of other movies. Like, if the other thing we can kind of look at as a measurement of this is, look, Sam Jackson has 64 films, and he's number one. Okay, that makes sense. Robert Downey Jr. has 43. Scarlett Johansson has 34. Tom Hanks has 55. Right? So Tom Hanks has more movies than Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson. He's basically around the same total in box office. So does that mean something, right? Because again, I would argue Tom Hanks is a movie star. Now you can argue, well, maybe awards. But again, do awards make you a movie star? Because we know no one watches the Oscars as it is. Does the award winner of so-and-so award make you a movie star? I don't know. Eddie Murphy, I believe he is a movie star, right? Like these are guys who are like, I'm looking at this top 20 list, and there's these guys who don't do franchises or who do less franchise stuff. Now, there's an argument for someone like a Johnny Depp. Is he a movie star? Is he a Pirates of the Caribbean guy? Like, it's hard to know, again. But the best version of this we have is, do you consistently, between characters, not necessarily between films, but between characters, do you bring in consistent levels of money, right? If you have 3 bombs before, and again, Robert Downey Jr. was a good actor before. He had other problems, which, resulted in him not being able to properly do the whole acting thing, and be considered a safe actor in Hollywood. But, he was a good actor, but nobody watched his movies, right? He was a prestige actor, which seems cool. And maybe that's a term for someone who gets award recognition and has made great movies, but also doesn't, necessarily draw people. Now, the other thing we can look at is, hey, look, Robert Downey Jr., in between his time as Iron Man, did some things, right? Tropic Thunder was one of those movies, even though that didn't nearly do as well as Iron Man. It was something in between. So, can actors actually leverage that success into, being able to do projects in between movies and also being able to make a living out of that, right? And being able to kind of add to that, right? And I guess the better example of this probably would have to be like Tom Hiddleston, right? Who is he on this list? I don't see his name. So, but we know Tom Hiddleston is Loki, right? Now, Tom Hiddleston before Loki basically did nothing, right? Like, if you go through his IMDb page before Loki, he basically was not, considered an actor. And then you look at Loki. Then after Loki, people knew who he was. So did Loki maybe give him that jump? It's possible. I think the biggest question would be after, if at ever any point he actually becomes officially done with Loki, it'll be interesting to see what happens there with his own returns. But, like, I'm thinking to my own experience in this case, and I look at a movie like Kong, that second King Kong movie, right? And that movie starred Brie Larson, it starred Sam Jackson, it starred Tom Hiddleston. And I'm not going to lie to you, the reason I watched that movie in theaters was not because of King Kong. I'm sorry, I don't care about King Kong. It was about the fact that I liked the fact that it starred Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, and Nick Fury. But the reasoning, and I'll tell you, this is exactly what I said to my brother when we went to go watch it, was, I'm going to go watch that movie starring Captain Marvel, Loki, and Nick Fury, right? Like, and again, Sam Jackson, special case. But, like, and I said it in, whatever. But, like, that's what I meant. Like, I wanted to, like, specifically in Tom Hiddleston's case, I wanted to watch the movie starring Loki, not Tom Hiddleston. Like, think about it. How many times would you say, oh, there's this person in this movie, I want to go watch this person in that movie? Like, do you, like, what do you, like, when you're saying, okay, it's Doolittle starring Iron Man, or do you say, like, that's what you're thinking. You're thinking Doolittle starring Iron Man. You're thinking Kong starring Loki. Like, you're not thinking Tom Hiddleston. You're not, maybe you do think Robert Downey Jr. That's, again, because he's kind of gone to this weird point where he's, like, in a weird way, morphed into the character, and that's, like, it. But, like, you think about it, and it's like, look, let's be honest here. Chris Pratt, what are you going to think of him as? Anything, like, I don't know anybody who can see like, anyone who sees a Chris Pratt movie. Hell, there are people who are, I know for a fact, there are people who are saying, I want to watch that Mario movie because it stars Star-Lord, right? Like, it, and so is Star-Lord has to be the movie star. Like, you think about the general population that's like, Chris Pratt is Star-Lord, right? And maybe it'll become Chris Pratt as Mario. I don't know, animated movies and movies. Like Bradley Cooper, I'm avoiding completely for a reason, because Bradley Cooper doesn't show his face in Marvel. So, and as again with Zoe Saldana, but like Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth is proven, and I've said this multiple times, is not a good actor. He's bad at acting. But he's a damn good Thor, and anytime I see him, I just say, oh, hey, it's Thor and this, and Thor and that. And I think you kind of get to this point where and again, I'm looking at Harrison Ford's name because I want to come back to this one. I don't even know what Harrison Ford is at this point. Like, because Harrison Ford's done enough stuff where technically you could argue maybe he's not, even though he's actually he's done 42 movies actually. But like Chris Evans has made more money than Harrison Ford and has done 29 movies. And Harrison Ford's done 40 something. 42. Like, you see the differentiation. You see Tom Holland having more money than after doing 15 movies than Matt Damon after doing 43 movies, right? And so then it makes you wonder, is Spider-Man Tom Holland? Again, Tom Holland, another funny situation where he has other factors going for him, but is it not Uncharted starring Spider-Man? I mean, I think we have to ask ourselves, what is a movie star? And I mean, that's really all I have for you right now is like, I don't think Quentin Tarantino's wrong. Like, to go back to his comments, I don't think he's wrong. Like, Captain America, and I don't think it's a bad thing either. Like, trust me, I don't think the actors particularly care because they're over here making billions of dollars. They don't care if you think of them as Iron Man or, you know, or maybe, actually, no, some of them do. But, like, you know, they're out here making billions of dollars. I mean, you know, the worst, someone may say, okay, well, Iron Man's a star. I don't know how much they would how much they really do truly deeply care about it because, again, they're making so much money off it. Now you've seen people like Emma Watson come out and say, I don't like being attached to this. You've seen actors completely fall off a cliff after movies. For example, you saw Rupert Grint and you saw, for a while, Daniel Radcliffe kind of just fall off a cliff because nobody wanted to see, and I think Daniel Radcliffe's done a pretty good job kind of making a comeback, but like, and Emma Watson did a really, really good job kind of surviving post Harry Potter, mainly by becoming a Disney princess because that's just like a very good saving move. But like you saw Rupert Grint as Ron basically just be Ron. Like anytime you see Rupert Grint, you just see, oh, it's old Ron, right? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I could very possibly be wrong, as people keep insisting I am, even though I truly believe I'm right. Now, if anyone else has a metric which they believe was better to measure movie stars, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media at KhalilJamal03, subscribe, comment, like, and share this video with your friends. That's what I'm supposed to do, and then follow us on, like, we have TikTok and stuff. Thank you all for watching. Bye.